complete Python course. In this, in the previous episode, we learned about file handling and ex- exception handling. Today, we will learn w- one of the most important and concept of Python, object-oriented programming, known as OOPS. OOPS help us to write clean, reusable, and organized code. It is widely used in real-world applications such as banking, systems, school management systems, and e-commerce website. So, let's get started. So, today's learning objectives are understanding OOPS, learn class and objects, use constructions, and explore OOPS principle. OOP principle. Why is OOP? We use OOP because it makes code reusable, keep it programs organized, makes maintenance easier, and modules use real world, real world objects like students, cars, and employees. So, OOPS make organized code reusable and scalable and programming using objects. So, proctextual programming versus OOP. In proctextual programming, the focus is on function. In object-oriented programming, the focus is on classes uh, and objects that are combine data and behave together. So classes. A classes is a blueprint of a template, blueprint of an object, define attribute and methods define in attribute and methods class keyword. A class is like a blueprint or a template used to create object. It defines its the properties, data is and methods functions that an object have we will have. For example, if we want to create information about students, we don't create each student from scratch. Instead, we create a student in class and then create multiple student objects from it. What is class? A class is a blueprint of for creating objects. It contains attributes like variables, store data, methods, functions, define the actions and objects can perform. Its syntax is just to write class and class name. Create, so let's create a simple class. Class student and then pass. Here, class is a keyword used to define a class. A student is the class name. Pass means the class is empty for now, as you can see. Class with a method. I have one more example of a class. So we can do that class student and def display self student1 student1 equals to student and student dot display this print. Here I have one student student1 student. What is the difference here? Student1. I don't know what is happening, but I can explain that this display is a method inside a class. Student one is the object created it for the student class, and the object it calls the display method. Let me see one time. Display. Now, yes. Now you can see welcome to the Python class. Why do we use classes? We use classes because they organize a related data and functions, make code reusable, reduce code duplication, and represent real world objects. Imagine a blueprint of a house. A blueprint contains a design, number of rooms, doors, and windows. Use a same blueprint, many houses can be built. So there are some key points. A class is a blueprint for creating objects. A class contains attributes and methods. Use the class keyword to define a class. One class can create many objects. Think of a class as a blueprint for building a car. The blueprint describes the car, her features, but isn't an actual car. When you build a car using the blueprint, the car is the object. In Python, and a class is the blueprint and an object is the real thing created from it. So now let's come to objects. Objects. An object is an in, inter, in, instance of a class. A class is only a blueprint, but an object is the real entity he created from from that blueprint. For example, if a student is a class, then Ali, Sarah, and John on are different objects. It's that class. What is an object? An object is a real world entity created from a class. It contains attribute data, information about the object, methods, a- functions, actions, hence the object can perform. Object name is the name of the object. Class name creates an object of the class. Creating an object. So let's create one object with an example. Class student class stu- student one equals to student and then rent student student one. So as here we can see the main student object at this has been displayed. The student is the class. Student one is an object created from the class. Python creates a new object in memory. Imagine a car factory. The car design in is the class. Every car produces use produced using that design and object. For example, class is equals to car and objects is equals to BMW, Audi, and Tesla. And these cars are different objects created from a different blueprints. Class versus objects. Class, blueprint, and template object intents of a class defines properties and methods, uses those properties and methods, create using class of keyword, create using class name, does not occupy memory until the object is created, occupies memory when it is created. There are some keywords. An object is an instance of a class. Objects are created using the class name followed by the parenthesis, and one class can create multiple objects. Objects can access the class methods and attribute using dot operator. A class is like a cookie cutter, and a cookie made from the it are the objects. One cookie cutter can make many cookies just as one as one class can create many objects. The design stays the same, but each object is a separate instance. Now come to the constructors. Constructors. A constructor is a special method that is automatically called whenever we create a new object from a class. Its main purpose is to intelligize the object's data. In Python, the constructors are written using the I double underscore init and then underscore then bracket method. What are constructors? Constructors is a special method that it, an object it when it is created. It runs automatically when an object is created. It is used to assign an initial value to, to the object it attribute. In Python, the constructor method is this. Why we use constructors? We use constructors to intelligize is object data, avoid writing extra setups, up that code, and given each object its own value when it is created. Real life example. Imagine you buy a new mobile phone. When you switch it on, if for the first time you set your language, data, and Wi-Fi, that this initial setup happens only once. The constructor uh, works in a similar way. It performs the initial setup whenever a new object is created. There are some key points. The constructor is a special method called I. It runs automatically when an object is created. It is used to initialize its object attributes. Constructors can have parameters to assign different values to different objects. Think of a constructor as the welcome process for a new student joining school. As soon as the student arrives, the student records their name, age, and class. Similarly, when an object is created, the constructor automatically assigns its initial information. Instance variables and methods. So, what are instance variables? Instance variables are, are variables that belongs to an object. They stores the data uh, of that object. Each object has its own copy and instance variables. They are usually created inside the double underscore init double underscore then parentheses. Constructors using the self keyword. What are instance mode methods? Instance methods are functions inside a class that work with an object data. They always have a self as is their first parameters. Using self, they can access the objects and sense variables. So, encapsulation. Here comes the encapsulation in Python. Encapsulation means combining data and the method uh, that works on that data into a single unit called mm, as a class. It also helps protect the data, protects the data uh, from being in accessed or modified directly. In simple words, encapsulation is about keeping data safe and controlled. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation is a process of wrapping in data, attributes, and methods, its functions together inside a class. The controlling access to the data, it improves data security, code organization, and easy maintenance. Types of access modifiers. Python provides three types of access level: public member, public members. Public members can be accused from anywhere. Protected members starts from a single underscore. They are intended it to be used within the class and its subclass. Protected members can still be accessed when, but by the conversation they should be treated as an internal. Private members start with double underscores. They can be accessed directly from the outside the class. Why we use encapsulation? We use encapsulation to protect uh, important data, prevent accidental changes, keep code organized, is improve code security. Imagine an ATM. You can withdraw money or check uh, your balance, but you cannot directly access your or change the bank database. The ATM only provides controlled operations. Similarly, encapsulation hides its important data and allows those access only through approved methods. Public versus protected versus private. There are some key points. Encapsulation combines data and methods into one class. It helps to protect data from unauthorized access. Python supports public protected and private members. Encapsulation improves security and make code easier to maintain. Think of a mobile phone. You can use app, make calls and send messages, but you cannot directly access or modify the phone and internal operating system. The phone protects its important data while allowing your you to use its feature. This is exactly how encapsulation works in Python. It hides sensitive data and provide controlled access to it. Encapsulation is about protecting data while still allowing safe and controlled access to it. Inheritance. Inheritance in Python. Now, let's learn about the another important concept eh, about object-oriented programming called inheritance. Inheritance allows an class to use the properties and methods to of another class. This means we can reuse existing code instead of writing the same code again and again. Inheritance makes programs shorter, cleaner, and easier to maintain. What is inheritance? Inheritance is a process by which one class acquires the properties and methods of another class. The class as being inherited is called as a parent base class. The class that is inherited is called as a child or a derived class. So the syntax is simple. Class parent, then it is a parent class. Whereas class child, then parenthesis and right parent. So there the types of inheritance. Single inheritance, one child class inherited it is from one parent class, animal to dog. Multi-level inheritance. A class inherits it from another child class, an animal, mammal, and then dog. Multi-inheritance. A child class inherits from more than one parent class, father, mother. All, uh, all the features we get from our father and mother. So it is a multi-inheritance. Why we use inheritance? We use inheritance to reuse existing code, reduce code duplication, and make programs easier to maintain, create relationships between classes. Some key points. Inheritance allows one class to inherit it, another class properties and methods. It promotes code reusability. The inherited class thus is the parent base class. The inheriting class is the child derived class. Common types of single, multi-level, and multi-inheritance. Think of a child inheriting qualities from their parents. Hence, a child may inherit eye color or a hair color from their parents, while also having their own unique personalities. In Python, the child class inherits the common properties and methods of a parent class while still being able to add its own features. Inheritance is about reusing existing features while allowing new ones to be added. Polymerism. The word polymorphism mm, comes from two Greek words. Poly means many and morphos means form. So polymorphism means one thing with many forms. In Python, polymorphism allows the same method name to perform different actions depending on the object that uses it. What is polymorphism? Polymorphism is a ability to of the same method of or a function to behave differently for different objects. It makes programs more flexible and reusable. Why use polymorphism? We use polymorphism to write flexible code, reuse the simple method name, reduce code duplication, make programs easier to maintain. Type of polymorphism. Method overriding means most common in Python, and method overloading limited support in Python and often achieved using different difficult arguments or args. There are some key points. Polymorphism means one interface, many forms, and the some methods can behave differently and for different objects. Method overriding is the most common way to implement polymorphism in Python. Polymorphism makes code flexible, reusable, and easy to maintain. Think of the word play. A child plays with toys is and musician play is a guitar and a footballer plays with a football and the word is same but the action changes depending on who is doing it. In Python, polymorphism works in the same way. The same method her name can perform different actions for different objects. Abstraction. Abstraction means hiding the internal implementation and details and showing only the initial features else to the user. It simply works the user only need to know how to use something, not how to work uh, internally. So, what is abstraction? Abstraction is a process of hiding complex implementation details and explo- exposing only the necessary functionality. It helps to make programs simple, secure, used to easy, and used to maintain. Example without a Python. Think about the ATM machine. You insert your card, enter your PIN, withdraw money. You don't know how the ATM communicates with the bank app or processes your request internally. You only use the feature it provides. This is abstraction. Abstraction class. An abstraction class is the class that cannot be used to create objects directly. It is used to as a blueprint for or other classes. In Python, abstract classes are created using ABC method. Why we use abstraction? We use abstraction to hide unnecessary details, it's reduce Python complexity, improve security, focuses only on important features, make code easier to maintain. There are some key points. Abstraction hides the implementation details. It shows only the initial features. Abstraction class are created it using the ABC method. Abstraction method is are decorated with ABC abstract method. Abstraction makes programs simpler and easier to maintain. Magic methods. These STRLEN or REP. There are some mini projects that you can make: a student management system, bank account system, and employee management system. These are some important questions. Create a class, use constructor, and implement inheritance. You can practice this question, and if you have any doubt, please write write it in a comment. If you like this video, please like, share, and comment. These are some interview questions, which are: what is food, class versus object, and encapsulation versus abstraction. So, in this session, we have learned classes, objects, constructors, and encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. Thank you.